Xenoblade Chronicles is a series of JRPGs from Monolith Soft and Nintendo, known for exploring enormous open worlds built on the backs of titans and sci-fi landscapes. These games combine real-time tactical combat with epic philosophical stories about fate, free will, and the nature of existence, delivering 70+ hour adventures with memorable characters and some of the most breathtaking environments in gaming. Over time, I've grown to love this series and all its games, and I've even created a series of posters for each of the numbered series of games, being Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. These posters feature a key moment in the games featuring the main cast of characters and some sort of centerpiece that relates to the game. Link in the description, go see them for yourself. However, there's a game in between 1 and 2 called Xenoblade Chronicles X, which didn't have any relation to Xenoblade 1 until the release of Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, which Nintendo shadow dropped the trailer for on a random Tuesday afternoon. Why? Anyway, the original had a cliffhanger ending, but the Definitive Edition gave us a new chapter which gave us an actual ending, as well as linking the game to the numbered series through the events of the ending. So to complete the series, I decided to make a poster for Xenoblade X featuring the final boss of the true ending, Void. Similarly to my Xenoblade 1 poster, I aimed to recreate the scene where the final boss battle is fought. Except in my Xenoblade 1 poster they were kind of floating in the middle of space, so I had to add a ground that didn't exactly replicate the scene but looked good regardless. At the end of the day, it's about whether the design looks good or not, because who needs accuracy when the poster is a banger. But this time they're standing on some yellow thing, I don't know, so I'll stay faithful to the games and recreate that. Just like I did for my Xenoblade 1 and 3 posters, I first booted up my Switch and grabbed screenshots of all the characters I needed. Elma, Lynn, Al, Doug, Gwyn, and Arena, as well as the player character. Since your player character is fully customizable in this game, I just decided to use my own character for this poster. After cutting out all the characters and Void, off screen of course because nobody wants to watch that, it was time to start actually making the poster. I assembled all the characters together and positioned Void right in the middle as the centerpiece. He's the final boss, so it only made sense. Next up was creating the sky. I combined a few stormy sky images, used a gradient map to give it that purple tone, and adjusted the curves to darken it down. Then I layered a night sky on top using the multiply blend mode to really enhance that darkness and add some extra detail with the stars. For the ground, I started with a yellow layer set to the linear dodge add blend mode. To get that curved edge, I made a rectangle and used the warp tool to bend it into shape. I noticed the ground had this marble-like texture in the actual scene, so I overlaid some marble texture on the bottom to match that look. Then came the blending process. I colour matched Void and all the characters to make sure everything felt cohesive and matched the scene. For the floor shadows, I duplicated each character layer, decreased the exposure, and set them to soft light blend mode. I also created another duplicate without the exposure drop, which helped create subtle reflections on the ground to add to that realism. Since the main light source would be coming from behind, I painted shadows on the backs of the characters. Then I added highlights using a combination of a solid white layer and an exposure adjustment layer. I then did the same shadow and highlight process on Void to keep everything consistent. For Void himself, I added glows to the middle where his face is, plus some finer details like the white parts in his eyes and the red sections on his chest area. Then I added glows along the border of the ground, which made it look a lot better and way more accurate to how it appears in the actual scene. I also added some broader, more global glows emanating from the entire ground. Time to add the 6 spears of Samar piercing into Void. I positioned them as they were in the game, added glows, and tried to recreate those energy effects that happen when the spears first get inserted. I used this random energy brush from YouTuber Imad Awan's brush pack, which worked perfectly. Next, I added the Ares Prime in front of the characters. It plays a huge role in the lore and is central to the second stage of the battle. The Ares Prime is what's known as a Skell, basically a massive robot that humans can pilot and use in combat. At this point, I realised I completely forgot to add Tatsu with the rest of the characters. So I booted up my Switch again and grabbed a screenshot of him. I ended up putting him behind Lyn instead of next to her, because I really didn't want to redo all of the shadows and lighting. Plus, Tatsu would probably just be chilling back there in this situation anyway. I also added the Vita as a subtle detail in the background, which is another Skell belonging to the antagonists for the majority of the game, the Ganglion, who are basically just a bunch of aliens. Void actually takes over this Skell before revealing its true form, which is why I wanted to include it. I put in a planet at the back as a reference to the ending where the characters fly out to find a new home, and also because I needed a logical light source for the scene and something to fill up the background. Then I added another smaller planet behind it because the left side of the background was looking really empty. This additional planet doesn't really have any relation to anything, it just looked good and filled space. I then added outer glows to the brightest parts of the image, around the planet, on the edges of characters, the Ares Prime, and the brightest parts of Void. This really made everything shine and gave it this sort of ethereal feeling. To finish off the effects, I added some particles around the spears to accentuate that energy effect and add some more detail. Finally, I applied some colour lookups and a camera raw filter to adjust the colours, contrast and sharpness. I also added some blur towards the bottom and sides using tilt shift and iris blur to draw the focus towards the middle of the image where the main elements are positioned, being Void and the characters. And there you have it, my Xenoblade Chronicles X poster is finally complete. This one was fairly similar compared to the previous Xenoblade posters I've done, but definitely still a challenge because of the number of different elements I had to include alongside the main character cast and final boss. X has such a unique sci-fi aesthetic with all the Skells, aliens and cosmic elements that I really wanted to capture that epic scale while keeping Void as the imposing centerpiece he deserves to be. I'm really happy with how the lighting and glows turned out, especially with the ground where I initially struggled to match the perspective and make it look half decent, but everything ended up working and being cohesive, which really sells that dramatic climactic battle feel. This game doesn't get nearly enough love compared to the other entries in the series, so hopefully this poster does it some justice. If you've played Xenoblade X, let me know in the comments what your favourite moment was, or if there's another scene you think would make for a great poster. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're a Xenoblade fan, make sure to check out my other Xenoblade posters if you haven't already, link in the description. And if you're not, what are you waiting for? Go play their games, they're so good. Like, subscribe, all of that. And I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, that's all the time I've got.